My name is Samantha, and at 29 years old, I never imagined I'd end up as the center of attention at my father's extravagant wedding. For years, he'd introduced me as just a security guard, wearing that faint grimace that made it obvious he wished I'd chosen a better career. But everything shifted that day when my job suddenly became more important than anyone could have guessed. The expression on his face when someone yelled my name and pointed to the TV screen is something I'll never forget. If you're watching this right now, I'd love to know where you're from. Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more stories about family relationships that take unexpected turns. My father, Richard Williams, built his life around status and appearances. As a senior investment banker at one of New York's most prestigious firms, he measured success in dollars and social connections. Our suburban home was spotless, our vacations were lavish, and our family photos perfectly staged for his office. But underneath that polished image, our relationship was strained by his impossible expectations. I was 12 when my parents divorced. My mother, Audrey, finally had enough of his constant absence and emotional distance. She was a kindergarten teacher who valued kindness over competition, and their values had grown worlds apart. The custody arrangement meant weekdays with Mom in her small apartment and weekends at Dad's sleek penthouse overlooking Central Park. Those visits grew tense as I got older and made my own choices. Dad had my life planned: prestigious university, law school, then working at one of his friend's firms. When I told him I was joining the military after high school, he acted like I'd said I was running away to join the circus. The military. He scoffed during one of our tense dinners. Samantha, people from our background don't enlist. They become officers, if they must serve at all. I enlisted anyway. For years in the Army taught me discipline, leadership, and, most of all, that I had a passion for security and protection. After my honorable discharge, I used the GI Bill to get a degree in criminal justice while working part-time as a campus security officer. From there, I built a career I was proud of, even if it never impressed my father. By 29, I'd risen to a senior position at Meridian Protection Services, one of the most respected private security firms in the country. We handled everything from executive protection to high-profile event security. I specialized in threat assessment and had recently led security for a diplomatic conference that earned our firm industry recognition. My supervisor even nominated me for a Professional Achievement Award. None of it mattered to Dad. In his world, success had a strict definition. Wearing a uniform instead of a power suit meant I'd failed his standards. When his wedding invitation arrived, I almost tossed it. Richard Williams and Eleanor Harrington request the honor of your presence. The cream-colored card with gold embossing screamed extravagance. Eleanor was wife number 3, a socialite from a wealthy banking family who moved in the same circles as my father. They'd met at a charity gala, and their engagement was announced in the society pages of the New York Times. You should go, my friend Alicia urged, when I showed her the invitation over coffee. Maybe this time will be different. Different how? I stirred my latte without looking up. He'll just introduce me as the daughter who became a security guard instead of a lawyer. Then prove him wrong, Alicia said. Show up looking amazing. Be polite but confident. Don't let him make you feel small. Shopping for wedding attire with Alicia turned into an all-day mission. We finally chose a navy blue dress, elegant without being flashy, paired with simple silver jewelry. Looking in the mirror, I felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this time he'd see me as the accomplished professional I was, not the daughter who'd let him down. The night before the wedding, I called Mom for support. Remember, honey, she told me, his inability to value your choices is his failure, not yours. You've built a life to be proud of. That's what matters. I held on to those words as I packed my bag for the weekend at the luxury resort hosting the wedding. Deep down, a part of me still hoped for reconciliation, for some sign my father could see my worth beyond my career choice. That tiny hope was why I packed the invitation, my train ticket, and prepared myself to face whatever judgment waited. What I couldn't have known was how drastically this weekend would change everything. The Rosewood Resort stretched across 30 acres of manicured gardens and pristine beach. As my taxi neared the main building, I spotted white tents in the distance, likely for the ceremony, decorated with elaborate flowers and crystal accents glittering in the midday sun. The lobby was buzzing with guests, many from Dad's social circle, women in designer sundresses with perfect highlights, men in tailored casual wear discussing stock options and real estate deals. I felt instantly out of place despite my carefully chosen outfit. Samantha, my father's voice cut across the lobby. He walked toward me with Eleanor on his arm, both looking like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. You made it. His greeting was polite but cold, a quick-cheeked kiss with barely any contact. Eleanor offered a flawless smile that didn't reach her eyes. So glad you could join us, she said, already glancing at other guests behind me. The rehearsal dinner's at 6. Make yourself comfortable until then. They moved on quickly, leaving me alone with my overnight bag. A bellhop took my luggage to my room, and I had hours to kill before the evening. The rehearsal dinner was in a private dining room overlooking the ocean. Round tables draped in white linen filled the space, each topped with orchids and roses. Place cards in perfect calligraphy marked assigned seats. Mine was at a table far from the head table, where Dad and Eleanor would sit. I was halfway through a glass of wine when Dad arrived with an older couple. "This is my daughter, Samantha," he said casually. "She's a security guard. Not a security professional, not a threat assessment specialist, not a senior operative at Meridian Protection Services, just a security guard. Like I spent my days checking receipts at a department store." "How interesting," the woman said, clearly struggling for something polite. "Richard says you were in the military," her husband added, trying to save the moment. "Yes, Army. For years, active duty," I replied. "Well, thank you for your service," he said, as they both searched for a way to exit the conversation. Dad made it easy. "Come, let me introduce you to Eleanor's brother. He just made partner at Goldman Sachs." As they walked away, I heard the woman whisper, "A security guard." With Richard's connections, she could have been anything. That scene repeated all night. Every introduction was the same. "My daughter Samantha, she's a security guard." Sometimes, he'd add, "She chose a different path," with a little shrug that said everything. By the time dinner was served, I'd been introduced to at least 15 people, each time reduced to a title stripped of context or accomplishment. Every one of those introductions chipped away at my resolve to stay. Weekend. During the main course, I slipped away to the restroom and texted Alicia. "This was a mistake. He's been introducing me to everyone as just a security guard." Her reply came fast. "Remember why you're proud of what you do. His opinion doesn't change your worth." When I got back to the dining room, I found myself next to the event photographer, probably the only other person there in a service role like mine. "Tough crowd," he murmured, tilting his head toward the table where my father was holding court. "You have no idea," I said. "I overheard one of your introductions," he admitted. "For what it's worth, security's a lot more important than what most of these people do. I'd rather have someone protecting lives than another investment banker." His kindness nearly made me tear up. I smiled, thanked him, and held it together. For the rest of the evening, I kept to myself, sipping water instead of wine so I could stay sharp. I thought about leaving first thing in the morning, skipping the wedding entirely. The temptation was real, but something made me stay. Maybe stubborn pride, maybe the tiny hope that tomorrow could be different. I had no idea just how different it would be. The wedding day was bright and clear. The ceremony was at 4, with cocktails and the reception after. I spent the morning avoiding the bridal party, walking the beach, then eating a quiet lunch on my balcony. By 3:30, guests were gathering in the garden where rows of white chairs faced a towering floral arch. I slipped into the back row, nodding politely at strangers who didn't know who I was. Better that than another humiliating introduction. That's when I noticed something off. Years in security train you to spot the little things, the details, that don't match the environment. One catering staff member stood out. His uniform hung wrong compared to the others, and he moved like someone unfamiliar with service routines. Most telling, his eyes kept sweeping the crowd, not like a server, scanning for empty glasses, but like someone assessing targets. I tried to brush it off. Professional hazard, I told myself. I see threats everywhere. But the feeling stuck, especially after I saw him speak to 2 other staff members who carried the same watchful tension. I drifted closer, positioning myself near a side entrance where I could watch without being obvious. The man I'd first noticed slipped inside, and against my better judgment, I followed at a distance. The hallway led to the kitchen, busy with real catering staff. My target cut straight through and into a storage room. I stalled, pretending to look for a restroom as a kitchen worker glanced at me. Minutes later, the storage door opened. I ducked behind a tall glassware cart. The man emerged with the 2 others, speaking in low voices. I caught pieces of their conversation. Rich pickings, estimated $2 million in jewelry. After the vows, during the champagne toast, for more coming through the east entrance, my stomach dropped. They were planning a coordinated robbery during the reception, striking while guests were distracted and valuables unguarded. It was smart timing. A room full of wealthy people in their best jewelry, focused on the newlyweds. I backed away, thinking fast. My first instinct was to call the police, but I needed to know if it was just these 3, or the larger group they'd mentioned. If 7 suspects were involved, this was far bigger than the venue's small security team. Finding a quiet alcove, I called local police, identified myself as a security professional, and explained the situation. The dispatcher promised to send officers discreetly, but said it would take at least 20 minutes. Next, I found the venue's security office. a cramped room near the management wing, where one guard sat watching camera feeds. "I need to speak to your supervisor now," I said, showing my Meridian Protection Services ID. "There's a credible threat to the Williams-Harrington wedding." Carl, according to his Namatag, looked skeptical but called in his boss. Minutes later, I was briefing Michael Jenkins, head of resort security. "We can't interrupt the ceremony on overheard talk alone," Jenkins said, though he was listening closely. "The police are on their way," I told him, "but they won't be here for 15 minutes. In the meantime, you should post guards at all exits and watch for anyone matching my descriptions." They mentioned the east entrance specifically. Jenkins nodded, impressed. "Are you carrying?" "No, I'm a guest. The bride's father hired extra guards for the gift table and jewelry," he said. "2 of them are armed. The threat involves more than 3 people," I warned. "Possibly 7. As Jenkins began mobilizing his team over the radio, I slipped back to the ceremony. Guests were seated, music played, and the wedding party was processing. I sat in the back, eyes scanning the perimeter. At the altar, my father's face lit up as Eleanor walked toward him on her father's arm. A pang of sadness hit me, but I forced it aside. Focus first, feel later. 2 men in catering uniforms were now loitering near the gift table. Their fake casualness screamed trained. I texted Jenkins their location and moved toward the back, keeping them in sight. Then, I spotted another man near the reception bar, a bulge under his jacket that looked a lot like a concealed weapon. I sent another quick text to Jenkins. The police still weren't there, and the suspects were moving sooner than expected. This wasn't going to happen later during the toast. They were positioning now. As the officiant pronounced my father and Eleanor, husband and wife, guests erupted into applause. The suspects stayed in place, perfectly staged for whatever came next. The transition to the reception was already beginning, servers emerging with champagne. As the couple greeted guests, I knew I had seconds to decide: warn my father and risk triggering the gunman, or keep monitoring until backup arrived. My training made the choice for me. I started moving toward the closest suspect, every muscle ready for what I might have to do, whether it ruined my father's perfect wedding or not. They were now talking through discreet earpiece. I glanced at my phone. Still no word from the police. Jenkins had set up his security team, as I'd advised, but they were short-staffed and poorly equipped for what was about to unfold. My military and security background told me things could spiral fast. The first sign the robbery was starting came when the lights flickered, a deliberate hit to the venue's electrical system. In that brief confusion, I spotted the man near the bar reach inside his jacket. "Gun!" I yelled, diving toward the closest group of guests as he pulled a weapon. Chaos erupted instantly. The gunman fired into the air, triggering screams and panic as people dropped for cover. "Nobody move," he barked. "This is a robbery. Cooperate, and no one gets hurt." 2 more men drew guns while others moved through the room, stripping guests of jewelry, wallets, and watches. I caught sight of my father and Eleanor huddled together, his arm wrapped protectively around her as one robber demanded their jewelry. From behind an overturned table, I counted 7 armed men, at least 30 civilians in immediate danger, no cops in sight, and security staff outgunned and holding back. An elderly woman nearby started to hyperventilate, catching the attention of a robber who approached with his gun up. "Shut her up," he snarled to the man beside her. "She needs her medication." "Please," the older man said shakily. I said, "Shut her up." The gun came up higher. I stood slowly, speaking evenly. "I'm a medic," I lied. "Let me help her before she has a cardiac arrest. You don't want a death on your hands that turns robbery into murder." He hesitated, then jerked the gun toward her. "Make it quick." I moved slowly, hands in view, kneeling beside her and putting myself between her and the gunman. She was truly in distress. "Deep breaths," I told her, quietly scanning the room for the positions of the other gunmen. "I'm going to help you, and everyone else here. Just focus on breathing." Her companion squeezed my hand in thanks. Through a side window, I spotted police arriving. The robbers hadn't noticed. They were too busy looting. The leader was now at my father's table, demanding his watch and Eleanor's necklace. "Take it," my father said, voice shaking as he removed his Patek Philippe. Eleanor, crying, handed over her necklace. The leader snatched them, then leveled the gun at my father's chest. "The bridal suite safe code. Now, I don't know it by heart. I need my phone." "No phones," the leader snapped, pressing the barrel to his temple. Something inside me snapped too. Whatever our issues, I couldn't watch my father die. I locked eyes with the security chief and gave a small nod. He understood. "There's a master code list at the front desk," I called. "I work here. I can get it." The leader narrowed his eyes. "Doing what?" "Security," I said, rising slowly. "I know the protocols." Hooked, he stepped closer, tempted by easy access to secure areas. As soon as he was in range, I moved. disarming him and slamming a strike into his solar plexus in one fluid motion. He folded, gasping, as I secured the gun. One of his men fired, and pain seared my upper arm, but I held the leader as a shield. Now, I shouted. Security and 2 undercover cops burst from cover. Gunfire broke out, but with their leader caught and police in the room, the robbers began to surrender. One bolted toward the kitchen with a server in a chokehold. Handing the leader to a cop, I went after him, blood soaking my sleeve. I tracked them to the loading dock. "It's over," I called. "Police have the place surrounded. Back off, or I'll shoot her." "You're making it worse," I said calmly. "That's attempted murder. Right now, you still have a shot at daylight someday." I edged into a better angle. "There's no way out. Put down the gun." For a heartbeat, I thought he'd pulled the trigger. Then he lowered it slightly, enough for me to lunge, twist his wrist, and free the hostage. The weapon clattered to the floor, and I dropped him into a restraint hold. Cops swarmed in seconds later. "You need medical attention," one officer insisted. "Check the guests first," I said, pressing a kitchen towel to my wound. "An elderly woman in the reception area needs help." Back in the main hall, the suspects were in custody, and paramedics were with the shaken guests. My father and Eleanor stood talking to a detective. When my father saw the blood on my arm, his face went pale. "Samantha, you're hurt." "It's just a graze," I said, though the pain was kicking in now. "Are you both okay?" A paramedic cut in, insisting I sit for treatment. As I was led away, I heard a guest murmur, "That's Richard's daughter. Did you see what she did?" The next hour was a blur of stitches, police statements, and adrenaline wearing off. The captain told me, "If you hadn't acted when you did, this could have been a massacre. These guys usually don't leave witnesses." I shrugged it off. I just did what anyone with my training would do. When it was finally over, guests trickled out. My father approached, his tone quieter than I'd ever heard. "The police said you saved lives today. Possibly mine. And Eleanor's." I didn't know how to answer. Years of strained history couldn't be erased in a single night. "Just doing my job, Dad," I said, "even if it's just being a security guard." His face tightened, but Eleanor stepped in gently. "We're so grateful, Samantha. The police want to talk to you again tomorrow. Will you come to brunch?" Exhausted, I agreed, just to end the conversation. All I wanted was a shower. I changed out of my blood-stained dress and went to bed. The reception was obviously cancelled, the venue now a crime scene being combed over by forensic teams. As I left, a local news crew was setting up outside, interviewing shaken guests about the attempted robbery. I slipped past them unnoticed and returned to my room alone. The next morning, I awoke to my phone buzzing non-stop. My arm throbbed as I reached for it, yesterday's memories rushing back while I scrolled through the messages. Alicia had texted multiple times after seeing early reports on the news. My boss at Meridian had called twice, leaving voicemails asking if I was okay and saying the company was incredibly proud. Even some former military colleagues had somehow heard what happened. The most unexpected notification was a voicemail from my mother. "Honey, I just saw what happened on the morning news. Call me as soon as you can. I'm so proud of you, but I'm also so worried." I'd avoided the reporters yesterday, but apparently the story still made headlines. I turned on the hotel TV and found a local channel already covering it. Breaking news: attempted armed robbery at luxury resort wedding foiled by security expert. 7 suspects in custody after dramatic intervention by wedding guests identified as security professional Samantha Williams. I watched, stunned, as shaky cell phone footage played, followed by interviews with grateful guests describing my actions in over-the-top heroic terms. "She moved like something out of an action movie," one guest gushed. "She saved that elderly couple, then took down the leader just as he was threatening the bride's father." Then the police captain appeared in a press briefing. The quick thinking and courageous actions of Miss Williams prevented what could have been a tragic outcome. These suspects are part of a crime ring behind multiple armed robberies targeting high-profile events. Thanks to Miss Williams, they're now in custody facing numerous felony charges. I turned off the TV, feeling oddly detached from the person they were describing. The truth was, I'd just relied on my training and done what had to be done. Standing by while armed criminals threatened innocent people, including my own father, was never an option. The bandage on my arm needed changing, and the hotel room felt suddenly claustrophobic. Despite not wanting to see my father or his guests, I decided to attend the brunch, mainly to give my statement to detectives, then leave. After a careful shower to keep my arm dry, I dressed in the only other outfit I'd packed, a simple black pantsuit I'd brought in case the rehearsal dinner was formal. The jacket fit awkwardly over my bandaged arm, but it would do. The brunch was held in a smaller room than the original venue, far more subdued than yesterday's elaborate setup. When I arrived, subdued guests were quietly picking at the buffet, while talking about the previous day's chaos. Eleanor spotted me first and broke away from a conversation. Samantha, thank you for coming, she said, her usual polished tone showing cracks of genuine emotion. How's your arm? It'll heal, I said simply. I understand the detectives wanted to speak with me again. Yes, they should be here soon. She hesitated, then added, Richard's been telling everyone how proud he is of you. It's just, well, this has been such a shock. I nodded, saying nothing. After years of dismissal, my father's sudden pride felt hollow, more about public recognition than about me. As I got coffee, I noticed the stares and whispers. People who barely noticed me yesterday now looked at me like I was someone else entirely. My father was at a table by the window, surrounded by friends, mid-story, and gesturing dramatically. As I approached, I caught him saying, always knew she had potential. That military training really paid off, didn't it? I froze mid-sip. Was he actually taking credit, implying he'd supported my service when he'd fought me on it before? I could react. A staff member told me the detectives were waiting in a private room. Relieved, I followed her out. The interview was straightforward. They needed more details for the timeline, and confirmed that all 7 suspects were in custody. Evidence from their vehicle tied them to 3 other high-end robberies. You'll likely be called to testify, the lead detective said, and there's already talk about a civilian commendation. I thanked them but brushed it off. I was just doing what I'm trained to do. Not everyone acts when the moment comes, he replied. From what we've gathered, you saved lives yesterday. Back at the brunch, I planned to slip out quietly, but my father had other ideas. There she is, he called, making the room turn toward me. The hero of the hour. He put an arm around me, his showy affection feeling strange after years of distance. I was just telling everyone how you've always had that protective instinct, he announced. Remember when she was 10 and stood up to that bully? Always looking out for others, my Samantha. The selective memory was too much. I pulled away. Dad, I should get going. I've got a train to catch. Nonsense. You can't leave yet. People want to hear about your security work. His tone was different now, no longer dismissive, almost boastful, like my career was. Finally acceptable because it made him look good. Before I had to answer, noise broke out near the bar. Someone had turned up the TV to a breaking news segment. We have more details on yesterday's dramatic foiling of an armed robbery at the Rosewood Resort. The anchor continued. The security expert who intervened has been identified as Samantha Williams, a decorated military veteran, now employed by Meridian Protection Services. The screen showed my professional headshot from Meridian's website, followed by security camera footage of me disarming the lead robber and coordinating with staff. Then came something I hadn't expected. Footage of me chasing the last suspect through the kitchen and ending the hostage situation, caught by the venue's cameras. I hadn't realized anyone recorded that part. As the clip played, someone shouted, Holy, she's on the news. Every eye in the room swung from the TV to me, frozen in the doorway. I watched my father's face as he stared at the screen, his champagne glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the floor. The sharp sound echoed in the sudden silence. The news anchor continued. According to police, this criminal group has been targeting high-profile events for months. Investigators say the jewelry and valuables taken from guests at yesterday's event were worth over $300,000 before Williams stepped in. When the segment ended, the room erupted. Guests pointing between me and the television in disbelief. My father stood frozen, champagne pooling around his expensive shoes, his expression a complicated mix of shock, embarrassment, and what might have been the start of real respect. In that moment, something shifted. Not because I wanted his approval, but because for the first time, he saw me for who I truly was, professional, capable, and valuable on my own terms. The shattered champagne glass seemed to crack the air in the room, breaking the polite society facade. Suddenly everyone wanted to talk to me. Guests who barely nodded yesterday now swarmed me with praise and questions. Is it true you were decorated in the military? One of my father's business associates asked. You work for Meridian. They handled security for the governor's inauguration, didn't they? Another asked. The news says you saw the threat before anything happened. How? A woman in pearls pressed. I answered politely but briefly, growing uneasy with the attention. This wasn't how I pictured the weekend. I had braced for dismissal, not the spotlight. My father hadn't moved, though someone had cleaned the broken glass. Eleanor stood beside him, whispering in his ear as he kept his eyes on me. Excuse me, I said to the crowd. I need to speak with my father. As I approached, I saw something I'd rarely seen in my life. Richard Williams, at a loss for words. He opened his mouth, closed it, uncertain. Dad, I said. Samantha, he replied, his voice rough. I didn't realize. The news says you're up for a Civilian Bravery Award. Apparently so, I said, though it wasn't my goal. And you work for Meridian, the top firm in the field. Yes, for 3 years now. I mentioned it at Christmas last year. But you were talking stocks with Uncle Robert. His face flushed slightly. I see. Eleanor touched his arm. Richard, maybe you and Samantha should talk privately. He nodded, leading me toward a small alcove away from the brunch crowd. The room split its attention between us and the TV, now replaying footage of the foiled robbery. They're saying you saved lives, he said when we were alone, including mine and Eleanor's. I did what had to be done, I replied evenly. I've been, he hesitated, too uninformed about your career. Uninformed. I couldn't hide the edge in my voice. Dad, you've been dismissive. You introduced me as just a security guard to everyone here. He winced. I didn't understand your work. You never asked, I shot back. Not once in 7 years. You decided it was beneath you and left it at that. He looked genuinely surprised. I thought you worked mall security, or as a nightclub bouncer. And that made it okay to belittle me in front of your friends, I asked. Over his shoulder, the TV now showed my bio, Army veteran, degree in criminal justice, specialized in threat assessment, and leading VIP protection at one of the most respected firms in the country. His eyes followed mine to the screen. You protect important people, he said slowly, as if realizing it for the first time. Yes, among other things, important people like me, he added, exactly like you. The truth hung between us. For years, he'd dismissed my career as meaningless, yet it had just saved him and everyone he cared about. Before he could answer, a resort staffer approached. Miss Williams, the media would like a statement. No interviews, I said. After they left, my father studied me. You don't want the publicity. It could help your career. My career's fine, I said. I didn't do it for attention. Then why? His tone held real curiosity. Because it was right. Because people were in danger. Because I'm trained for it. I paused. Quieter now. And because, despite everything, I wouldn't watch you get hurt. His expression softened. Something rare for me. Samantha, I owe you an apology. Not just for yesterday, but for years of misunderstanding. It was a start. Before I could reply, the TV volume went up again. The anchor said, we've learned more about Samantha Williams, the security expert who prevented tragedy yesterday. She recently led protection for the International Finance Summit, guarding 30 top executives and government officials. She's received multiple commendations and is considered a rising star in private security. The camera cut to my boss, Martin Chen. Samantha sets the standard for our profession. Yesterday showed her training, skill, and courage. The room went quiet, eyes bouncing between the TV and me. I felt my face heat, not from pride, but from vindication. For years, my father never looked at my world. Now it was on display for him and everyone else. As the segment ended, scattered applause spread through the room until everyone was clapping. My father hesitated, then joined in, never breaking eye contact. The noise faded, and I turned back to him. I should go, I said. This is your and Eleanor's celebration, not whatever this is now. Wait, he said, reaching for my arm but stopping at my bandage. You were shot protecting us, just a graze. That's not the point. You risked yourself, for people who didn't even know your name, including me. He stopped, unable to finish. The unspoken truth lingered between us. Even for him, a man who had never valued what I did until it saved his life. Dad, we don't need to do this, right now, I said suddenly, drained by the weight of it all. You should get back to your guests. We can talk later. No, he said firmly. We've put this off too long, already. I've put it off. He glanced around the crowded room. But you're right. This isn't the place. Will you meet me this afternoon before you leave? Just the two of us. I hesitated, then nodded. Text me, when, and where. As I turned to go, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Martin, my boss at Meridian. I stepped aside to answer. Samantha, are you okay? He asked immediately. I just saw the full news report. I'm fine, I assured him. Minor injury, nothing serious. The company wants to release a formal statement about your actions. The phone's been ringing off the hook. Media calls, new client interest. What you did is exactly what we trained for, but we almost never get to show it so publicly. I sighed. I understand, but I'd rather not be the face of the company over this. I respect that, Martin said. But there's more. The CEO wants to meet with you when you get back. Between us, I think a promotion's coming your way. What you did reflects everything Meridian stands for. After hanging up, I stood in the hallway, trying to process everything. In 24 hours, my relationship with my father had flipped upside down. I'd become a minor news story, and my career was possibly about to take a big step forward. It was a lot to take in, but as I'd learned in both the military and security work, the biggest moments often come when we least expect them. The question was what I'd do with this one. My father texted me to meet at a quiet bar on the resort's top floor, far from the wedding guests. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting alone at a corner table with an ocean view. 2 untouched drinks sat before him. Club soda with lime, he said, nodding to one of the glasses. I remembered you don't drink on duty. Figured you wouldn't tonight either. Thank you, I said, surprised at the thoughtfulness. Small, but significant, especially from a man who rarely noticed my preferences. We sat in awkward silence until he spoke. I watched more of the coverage. After you left, they interviewed some security expert who broke down exactly what you did, how you spotted the threat pattern, positioned yourself, used minimal force for maximum effect. He shook his head. It was like hearing about a stranger, except it was my daughter. That's the problem, Dad, I said quietly. I've never been a stranger. I've been right here. You just never looked. He flinched. I deserved that. This isn't about what you deserve, I replied. It's about recognition, basic recognition, of who I am and what matters to me. He nodded slowly. I thought I knew what was best for you. The path with the most opportunity, the most security. Financial security isn't the only kind, I said. And living someone else's dream is never as fulfilling as chasing your own. I see that now, he said. Yesterday, when that man had a gun to my head, do you know what I thought about? Not the firm, not the stock portfolio, not the houses. I thought about you and your mother, and how much time I'd wasted on things that didn't matter. And then, there you were, taking control when even trained guards backed away. You were magnificent. Not because of the news or the hero label, but because you were yourself, calm, capable, confident. He looked at his untouched drink. I've never been prouder, and never more ashamed of how little I've supported you. The words I'd wanted for years landed with surprising weight. Part of me wanted to accept them outright. Another part knew real honesty was needed if we were to rebuild anything. Dad, I appreciate that. But I didn't become this person overnight. I've been dedicated, skilled, committed to my work for years. The only thing that changed was your perception. You're right, he said. I can't undo the years I dismissed you. I can only tell you my eyes are open now, and I want to know my real daughter, not the one I imagined. That's a start, I said. Your mother always said you knew your own mind better than anyone. She told me fighting your nature would only drive you away. She was right. The mention of my mother stirred another question. Have you talked to Mom since yesterday? Yes, she called after seeing the news. His expression softened. She reminded me, forcefully, that she's been going to your award ceremonies for years without me. I smiled, picturing her saying that. There's one more thing, he said seriously. Thank you. Not just for yesterday, but for being who you are, despite me. That takes a strength I'm only beginning to understand. For the first time, I felt the wall between us start to crumble. In the weeks that followed, my life shifted in unexpected and surprising ways. The video went viral, bringing a wave of media requests I mostly turned down. Meridian promoted me to head a new division for event security and threat assessment training. My injury healed, leaving only a small scar, a reminder of what I could do when it mattered. Professional recognition came too, the Civilian Bravery Award, industry profiles, conference invitations. But the private changes mattered more. My father started asking about my work, listening to my answers, even attending one of my team's tactical demos. When a financial magazine named me to its 40 under 40 list, he framed the article and hung it in his office beside his own accolades. 6 months later, he came to my apartment for dinner, a first sitting at my small kitchen table. He looked around thoughtfully. You know, he said, I always equated success with a certain lifestyle, big house, fancy car, exclusive address. I know, I said, serving pasta. That's why my choices confused you. He nodded. But looking at your life, now, I see a different kind of success. You have purpose, respect, work that makes a he paused before speaking. You make a real difference in the world, he said, then added, you have integrity. That's worth more than any corner office. I smiled, fully aware of how meaningful those words were, coming from a man who had spent decades chasing corner offices and country club memberships. Does this mean you'll stop sending me law school program listings? I teased. He laughed, a genuine sound I had rarely heard. I think I can safely say your current career path is working out just fine. My healing journey went far beyond my relationship with my father. That incident made me face how much I had absorbed his dismissive attitude, sometimes doubting my choices even when I was outwardly successful. Through therapy and deep self-reflection, I learned to embrace my path fully, not as a reaction to his disapproval, but as a conscious choice that matched my values and strengths. I realized that real security doesn't come from others' validation, but from living authentically. My father's recognition was welcome, but I no longer needed it to feel whole. A year after the wedding incident, I got a surprising call from Eleanor. She and my father were hosting a charity gala for first responders and wanted me to speak about the importance of security training and emergency preparedness. Your father is really proud of you, she said warmly, warmer than I'd ever heard her sound. He tells everyone about your work now. It's actually very sweet. At the gala, standing at the podium before a room full of people, including my father, I thought about how life can change so profoundly when we stay true to ourselves, even when those closest to us can't yet see our worth. Security isn't just about protection, I told the audience. It's about creating spaces where people can live without fear. Sometimes that's physical safety, but often it's something deeper, a sense of being valued for exactly who you are. I caught my father's gaze, and the look of understanding between us meant more than any headline or award. Life isn't often as dramatic as those moments at my father's wedding, but the lessons from that day still guide me. I learned that sometimes you have to save yourself before you can save others, that recognition can come from unexpected places, and that it's never too late to repair what's been broken. I still work in security, still step between danger and those who need protection. But now I do it knowing without doubt that my path is valid, valuable, and entirely my own. Have you ever had a moment when someone finally recognized your worth after dismissing you for years? Or a dramatic event that shifted a difficult relationship? Share your story in the comments. And if you found value in mine, please like this video, subscribe for more stories of personal triumph, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that their path matters, even if others can't see it. Yet thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the greatest security comes from knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be.